T-minus 60 seconds and counting. We passed T-minus 60. 55 seconds and counting. Neil Armstrong just reported back. It's been a real smooth countdown. We passed the 50-second mark. Power transfer is complete. We're on internal power with the launch vehicle at this time. 40 seconds away from the Apollo 11 liftoff. All the second stage tanks now pressurized. 35 seconds and counting. We are still go with Apollo 11. 30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. We have a liftoff, 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Power clear.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the Bullpen. As always, I'm James Roy, and with me is Tom Chavarria. Tom, how are we feeling?
Feeling a lot better right now. Jeremy Pena just went deep. The Stros are up 5-2, lighting up Jacob deGrom. But we're here to talk Texans. And new day, new week, put the old game to bed. Time to look forward to a get-right game against the Jags.
Indeed. And I don't think there's anything wrong with talking about the Astros going for the silver boot tonight. So I like what I'm seeing so far. Don't want to get ahead of myself. Looking like a good game so far. So let's talk about that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was going to agree with you. Christian Javier, he's been helter-skelter a little bit with his starts. Today, so far, he's looked pretty good. Effectively wild early, but now he's starting to really find like his groove a little bit. Last couple innings, he looked really good. And the offense, man, some guys are just having some monster at-bats. Jeremy Pena, that dude's going to make a lot of money somewhere. I don't know if it's going to be in Houston, but he's going to make a lot of money somewhere. Dude's just been phenomenal all season long in the leadoff spot. And Carlos Correa, welcome back, Carlos Correa. He's really a nice two-hole hitter right now for the team. Last couple of nights, they've gotten on together, and, they're great, third base, shortstop, left side of the infield. So, I mean, and then you get Tuve doing what Tuve does. Everybody likes to dog on him when he doesn't do anything, and then he hits a big-time homer, and then everybody gets quiet. No, Tuve, my goat. Tuve. Oh, the rest of the week, move Tuve down in the order. He should be batting 7th.
I mean, I don't think, for me personally, Altuve's always been so willing to move around. He's never been a selfish guy, a big part of setting the culture. So, I never got why people would come for him. If he deemed it necessary, or if it became very apparent, he's been very willing to move himself wherever he needs to be to help the team. So, I don't know. But I feel good. I feel good about this Astros team, and I feel okay about this Texans team right now. I mean, 2 weeks against two teams. I literally saw graphics this week that list both the Buccaneers and the Rams in some varying degree as either contenders or at least playoff teams this season, and the Texans played them close. Watching the games obviously doesn't give you the warm and fuzzies. I think that throughout the time that we've been doing this show, we've had episodes that came after games like this where the Texans won, and I still felt the same way. So I think that even if the Texans won against the Buccaneers, it still kind of feels cheap to get a win the way that it would have had to have happened.
Hate when you say that. Hate it.
You hate it when I say it? I know you hate when I say it. I
care the quality of the win. In the NFL, a win is a win is a win.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of that video, the one Irish dude where he's like, which one's heavier, a pound of feathers or a pound of steel? And it's like, it's the feathers are not heavier. It's got to be the steel. It's like, no, they're both the same weight. It's 1 pound. It is the same thing.
The people that have to win sexy, I just want to know what they're like in their personal lives. Because me personally, I take wins wherever I can get them in in my sports teams and life. I don't care how flashy or what the score was. I do not care if they didn't look great doing it. I just want to win. I don't care how.
I mean, oh my God. I feel you. I mean, a win is a win. I think that the reason I would feel better about it is that I've watched really great teams play close games like this and come out on top and have rough games, but it feels like it's every week for the Texans. It feels like it's been every week for a while now. I would look at this, right? When we look at the stretch of time where Patrick Mahomes was throwing for 5,000 yards a season, he's obviously not been his best since Tyreek Hill left. But if we observe that time, the Chiefs would have games where they would play teams really close. As much as you can say one way or another how the officiating goes, they'd play teams close and they would have rough games. But the next week they wouldn't go into a trash team stadium and play that team close as well. And I think that's where I take issue. So we haven't seen the Texans go out and I know we've had this conversation out before, but I'll air it out right now. The Texans don't have to go out and have these kind of wins, but I think it instills a lot of confidence knowing that the Texans can at least take care of business when they're supposed to. And then if they play a close game like this against the Rams and Buccaneers, I think a lot of people will look back at this. It's frustrating, but I can see the conversation shifting as the season goes on. If the Texans go into Jacksonville, get a dominant dub like they did week 3 of 2023, which is, as far as I can remember, the last time they got a dominant win. I could be wrong. There may have been other ones, but it's a good example of the kind of win I'm talking about. They went in, they very thoroughly dismantled Jacksonville. It was never really close. They came in and got the dub against a team that they were expected to lose to at that point. But if we, hindsight being 2020, that was probably not the case. But we see them go out and get that win. And then when we look back, we go, oh, well, we look back at their losses and we go, the Rams are a Super Bowl contender. The Texans played them 14-9. They held them to 14 points and they kept it a 5-point game. That's crazy. Oh, the Buccaneers, they're in the NFC Championship right now. The Texans played them to a 1-point game. Not realistically what it should have been. I mean, it felt like the Buccaneers should have been winning by a lot more throughout most of that game, but those games start to, you get some revisionist history as time passes. If you're winning those, as Tom would call it, those sexy wins, where you're going in there, you thoroughly, BTA, go in there and dominate, but it just doesn't feel like the Texans really do that ever. And I think that's the issue. And that's why, as much as I'm an optimist, right? Like out front, I'm not out on Nick Caley. I'm not out on this offense. I think that we can look back with hindsight and say that there's some things that happened this offseason that may not have been the best plan for immediate success, but I think this was always the expectation that this could happen with an inexperienced offensive coordinator. But I'm not out on it because I think that they can get better, but I can't deny that pretty much since late 2023 all the way through the 2024 season, the Texans haven't really put it together offensively. There's not been a game where we can look to and go, yeah, this Texans offense works. Like, obviously, we look in the 2023 season, we have the Jacksonville game, we have the Tampa game, we have the Pittsburgh game. We can go down the list of games where this Texans offense came in and performed at a high level. And that's why the drop-off is so frustrating. It's not that I think people get confused that like people are just mad suddenly at CJ Stroud and the offense and the way things are running. And like those calls for people to be fired, I understand the emotion behind them because I understand the disappointment. The disappointment comes from a place of this offense produced at that level and then very suddenly couldn't. And now the Texans are grasping at straws trying to find things that are going to fix it. And they hadn't found the fix yet. So it's just still an offense that feels inept, feels like it can't produce. And Caley's not helping himself, but I think Caley's still figuring it out. So I'm not going to sit here and be out on him. I'm not going to say, oh, Nick Caley lost 2 games against Super Bowl contenders because he doesn't know how to call an offense yet as an inexperienced play caller. That's it. Fire him. He's done. I look at it this way, right? And I know I'm kind of rambling right now. I'm on a roll. I'm going to let it roll. Someone told me, they said, after 2 games, you know when trash is trash. And Nick Caley will never call a professional offense ever. And I look back and it took a minute because when you're picking for facts that back what your opinion is, you kind of have to dig a little bit. And I was looking at great coaches and their first time calling games. And I landed on Andy Reid. Andy Reid was an offensive line coach through most of his career. In 99, he took over the reins in Philadelphia as the head coach, started calling an offense. Guess what happened in 99? They lost their first 4 games in a row. So in week 2 of 1999, did Eagles fans suddenly know that Andy Reid was never going to be a great offensive mind in the NFL? That's not to say that Nick Caley's suddenly going to be Andy Reid levels of coaching, but to say that we can determine that this Texans offense will never be good under Nick Caley based on 2 games of play is I don't know. I can't get behind that. And people will call me an optimist. People will call me crazy. I prefer optimist. There are far worse terms I've been called in my replies for this stance, but it's been 2 weeks. And I think personally, I've given the deadline of the bye week. I feel like that's a short deadline. I could move that back by that point. I think that there are things this Texans offense could do where they're not all the way there yet, where I could be like, well, they've made progress. So like, I give them benefit of the doubt and move the timeline back. But I mean, it is different. There's a lot of factors that go around this. You look at the comparison between 2023 and now, like no one expected anything of the 2023 team. This team comes into the season with very high expectations. So like I said, I understand it. I understand where the fans are coming from. I feel that frustration too, somewhere deep inside of me. I've just kind of stifled it and tried to let reason and logic win myself. And that's not a knock on anyone else. Being a fan, it's short for fanatic. It's a very emotionally driven thing. And so to let your logic win is hard sometimes, but I try to let that happen. I don't know, Tom, what are your thoughts? I just want to know what you think about that whole rant that I just went on.
Oh man, there's so much.
There's so much.
Where do I begin? Let's start with the offense, right? You were saying the offense is inept. It's not going to do anything. And in 2 weeks, we know. I don't understand the people that feel that in 8 quarters of football, you can have a determination on what a team is offensively and what they're able to do. I don't understand that. Like, what scenario in your life, anywhere else outside or any sport, does somebody produce that fast, that quick? And okay, you can say, well, these are professional players, whatever, blah blah blah. Like, let's do that then. Okay, we're talking year 3 for all of these guys, right? Like D'Amico, CJ, all these guys, year 3, and it's like, oh my God, they should be there. And this is their second coordinator. Like you made the Andy Reid point for me. And I love that because Andy Reid took a long time to get there. Andy Reid got to the Super Bowl in Philly and never won. Andy Reid had to get, what was it, like 20 years later or something with Kansas City before he got it right? I don't know the exact time, but it wasn't right away.
I think it was like, yeah, somewhere around 15 to 20 years.
Something crazy. Anyway, Patrick Mahomes, you talked about the Chiefs. Man, they won so many ugly games last season that people were sure they were paying referees left, right, and center because every time they needed a call to get bailed out of a loss, they got it. And it was like their offense sputtered, their defense let teams score late, and then they had to figure out ways to get back in. It does not matter. Like, I can't understand where people are like so adamant they know. And for me, I really feel like this is a young football team. Like, everything that I see on this football team is like, okay, I've got a young quarterback, I got a young head coach, I got a brand new offensive coordinator, brand new. Like, he's got 8 quarters of NFL play calling experience in his whole friggin' career. He didn't call a play for anybody else. Like, what are you going to do? If you didn't want that, if you didn't want the growing pains, you should have went out and got a dude that's been doing it for 10 years. The Texans said, look, we think this guy could be the guy. We're going to grow with him, and we'll be patient. We got a rock star defense. The defense is going to keep us in every game. If we're allowed to figure it out, maybe win a couple of these games ugly, we're going to be where we want to be towards the end of the season. And I don't understand how people don't see that. Like, there's nothing that said this team was going to be sexy, Porsche, Ferrari, Lambo offense out the gate. If you took rookie offensive coordinator, rookie O-line coach, and then now we've got rookies that we want to produce. We want Woody Marks to do all the things. Rookie running back. We Jalen Noel needs to return every kick. Rookie.
One of them.
Every kick. Jalen Noel and Higgins need to be on the field 50% of the time. One or the other, all the time. And I don't disagree with some of that, But like, you're asking guys that have never done it in the league to do it and be successful right away. It's so tough. This game, wide receivers, the rule with wide receivers, 2 years. Wide receivers will figure it out. Look at Nico. Nico Khan's the perfect example. Nico's an absolute friggin' stud. And Nico was where the first 3 years in the league. Does anybody know? Does anybody remember what Nico was doing? Nobody knows. If you would have had the same feeling about Nico Collins would be out of the league for the production that he had in the first 3 years of the league. You'd have been like, this guy's a bum. And it's like, now, absolute stud. And I agree, but there has to be that time. These guys have to have the time to be able to go, okay, let me learn how to do this. Let the game slow down. Let my heartbeat slow down. And all the other guys around him are supposed to help. Now, that's easier said than done, right? Woody Marks looked really good. I think Woody Marks should play more. I think that would help this offense. Jalen Noel probably should play more. That would help this offense. But I think Nick Haley's got to do that too, right? He's got to see that and start calling their numbers. That's on him too. But I think that's a growing thing. You got to go, man. I got this vet I could use. Let me go to the sexy rookie. Sometimes that's not an easy decision to make because you're playing for your job. You think he's not worried about what you guys think? I guarantee you he's worried about what everybody thinks. Because, like, man, I'm in here to coach football, and my guys don't look good. So for me, I know for the fanatic thing, I understand it, and I'm with it. But at the same time, if you've been doing it long enough, you've seen uglier with less, and you're like, man, I love what I see from this team. If they can just get the time to make it, let it marinate, and then you get the production. You can't panic after 2 games.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, the thing I'm getting from a lot of like the OG Texans fans is more of like we've seen this before. It's just going to be the same Texans. So you get 2 different, you get the manic like this. I've never seen this team be bad. This is awful. And then you get this team's been bad for a really long time. They just had a good year. And to me, like, I don't know, I can't watch football every year and not have some sort of hope that my team's going to be good. And let the logic win out in the end, that maybe inexperience just needs time. And a lot of the issues that this team had stem from inexperience. Before I get into that, we have some Instagram comments to catch up on. Don't worry, guys. I'm looking at the chat. We're just kind of ripping right now. We're really going for it. But if you guys want to be
all
heard,
of y'all.
please,
thank y'all so much. Keep it coming.
Please keep the comments going in the chat. A lot of amens to Tom in the Instagram chat. Appreciate that. Let's see. There's a lot going to it, but one that I'd like to point out is where is it? I think it was MUT26 said it, but they said that it's important to note. I mean, Mixon and Dell have both been out, so this team is missing the experience from that side of things. And like I said, the inexperience, I think, being a big part of the problem is evidenced by the way that this defense is getting a lot of penalties. This offense, as much as they've improved from last season, still suffers from the occasional egregious penalty that kind of holds them back and sets back a drive. So my big thing is that I've seen improvement. Week to week, this Texans team has taken a step forward and made progress on the offensive side of the ball. I'll tell you this, I thought from the first drive against Tampa that this offense was back, and they're still just growing. They found it. They captured lightning in a bottle. They rode it for a drive and then lost it. And so now they just have to keep finding that feeling, like a gambling addict shifting table to table in Las Vegas. Just got to keep riding the lightning till you find that feeling, hit the jackpot. But I don't know if I like that metaphor. I'd rather them find something more permanent and less unstable and addictive. But anyway, another comment I like here is H Texans United. Shout out to him, one of our buddies, more consistent shower to this kind of thing. I hate the percentage of passes in the shotgun and the runs and how easy it was to tell what we were going to do. It made me think of like Lance McCullers in the playoffs a few years back and Astros pitchers in general that have kind of, they step up and you can tell, oh, he's got to tell. They know what's coming. I'm not going to make a joke about the cheating scandal because I'm a fan of the team. I'm going to go with a different angle and talk about tipping pitches instead of banging trash cans. But anyways, there's a point where you look at the percentages, 83% of the time in the shotgun, pass, 83% of the time when under center, run. If you're given a tell like that, the defense can pin their ears back and go wherever you want. Like, I mean, they got Vita Vea down there, and he sees CJ Stroud go under center. He's like, oh, Nick Chubb is dead. He's a dead man. I'm getting in there, and I'm going to crush him. I mean, you can't be telling him exactly what you're going to do. How do you feel about that? So, generally, like, just to paint a picture, it's not just the shotgun percentage versus when he runs the ball or not. It's other things that are not enabling Stroud to kind of function in this offense, such as low motion rates. Just in general, the offense is not really running in a way that I think Lance Zierlein kind of painted the picture with his tweet, which was that Nick Caley's not really calling a creative offense. It's just a very basic, bland, and predictable offense. So, and that's a paraphrase, Lance. I don't want to act like I got all your words off the top of my head. But what do you think about that side of things with Nick Caley's inexperience and how the offense is being run?
I think what would you expect him to do with a new offensive system that they've literally installed for what? I guess you want to say 5 weeks now? Like, I mean, think about it. If we go back in time, OTAs, CJ didn't throw. So, I mean, he wasn't really instilling you. He wasn't running these plays. Sure, he's probably staring at a playbook, but I feel like with a lot of football players, you have to be out there. You have to feel it. I really think the Texans did a very, very disservice to themselves by not getting more reps in preseason. I really think if we want to talk about why this offense looks so vanilla, it's because they did so little in preseason. You know, one drive here, one drive there, one drive there. Obviously, to protect guys, they wanted guys to be healthy. But again, when you're trying to install brand new system, brand new offensive coordinator, I think they got to just run a ton of plays. And right now, they're in a lot of vanilla concepts and stuff to stay out of penalties, to get to the line in a hurry. I don't want to have to like wonder if this guy knows what he's doing because we're deep into the playbook, if that makes sense. So I feel like that's a lot of it. Christian Kirk being out probably doesn't help it. You know, Watson now being down probably doesn't help it. Berrios was being down probably didn't help it because those are guys that you saw run with the ones a lot in training camp. The only time that CJ got to really run some of this offense. So I think we're just gonna have to be patient on the offensive side of the ball for that reason. If you were looking for stuff exotic, if you're looking for a lot of rollouts and misdirection and stuff like that, maybe it's not even in there. I don't even know. That's just what I think based on what I'm seeing. I could complain about it or just try to understand why they're doing it. I wish they would roll out more. CJ with his legs is a weapon. I do believe that there should be RPOs for him and let him make the best decision. Even if that means throwing the football away. I'm okay with that too. I just want him to get out on the edge where we're not depending on this offensive line, which we clearly don't want to depend on a ton, and give him a chance to, do what he does.
I agree with you, and so does Grippy Sock Gaming over on Instagram. Says Nick's a rookie OC, and the best hope is that as the season goes on, he adds more and switches things up. As long as he learns, could be good. And then US Randy, I believe it's Air Force. It just says AF, could mean something else. There's obviously different meanings for that. After the bye, we'll start rolling. I couldn't agree more. A little worried about that week before the bye, but we'll see how that goes. Let's see. I also got the 3-and-outs must stop. I agree. And then Bucky Irving tore us up. That kind of brings me into a talking point, which is that, and Stressens has been going on about it. I know he was a big part of pushing this narrative during the offseason. I personally took the stance that the Texans' approach to interior defensive line, I've explained it a lot of times. I mean, bargain bin shopping, rotation guys, getting the production that they do out of that group is a huge win in terms of giving Nick Caserio what he needs in order to be able to work the salary cap and get better at other positions. You would hope he'd be using that to improve the offensive line, but we can talk about that another time. Either way, one of the big things that a lot of people viewed as a big need for this Texans team was a true nose tackle that's like a run stuffer, big guy, get in there and stop the run. And the Texans, as good as their run defense has been under D'Amico Ryans, when they face a truly well plotted out running attack, tend to get exposed in the middle due to lacking that true run stopper in the middle. What are your thoughts on the way that the Bucs were able to kind of run through us? Now, to clarify, I think there was about 50 of those yards, 169 yards total. There's about 50 of them that came on a drive where the Texans were worn out. It was the last drive of the game. Henry To'oTo'o should have ended the game a few plays prior to those runs, so I'm not quite sure I am really mad about that. And then there's 30 yards that came from Baker Mayfield on non-designed runs. So at the end of the day, it's around 100 or just under 100 yards rushing, but it felt like the Buccaneers were tearing us up all day running the ball. What is your take on that?
I mean, I thought Sheldon Rankins was brought in to be that guy. You know, dude performed well with the Texans, went out, got paid, then got cut, then got brought back. I thought Foley was good in that, you know, sort of interior defensive line. I know they got some guys that are hurt that maybe could fill that void. I don't think that the Texans didn't do enough to address it. I think people want, like, the ones that complain about every position, I think play too much bad. You can't have everything. Like, you're not going to have 53 guys that are all studs. You're going to have some guys that are good. You're going to have the guys that are improving. You're going to have some young guys, good mix. And there's going to be positions where you struggle. You know what I mean? Like, some teams have really poor safety rooms. You know, some teams have really poor linebacking rooms. For me, I think if the Texans are lacking a nose tackle, or if the Texans don't have, you know, more than one tight end, you know, that's the deficiency that, you know, that they have. And you just can't fill everything and have two stud DNs and have two stud corners and have a stud quarterback and have, you know, a stud running back and have a stud, you know, wide receiver. Like, you can only spend so much money and so much resources and still field a team. I don't know what they could have done. I know they were looking into, you know, interior defensive line, and maybe it was too steep price wise.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that. I think that the feeling is, if the Texans were always going to run this platoon type defensive tackle room, that maybe there should have been some thought into having a guy in that room who's a known run stuffer, even if he's not the best. I mean, you go for a guy who's on a 1-year deal, who is known to be able to do that. And then if you're caught out of position, if you can't substitute, if he's just not on the field, you can explain that away. But not having a specific guy on your roster that was brought in to do that, you know, specific job, I think is not a great strategy. But I mean, to be fair, the Texans, I think, have put together a great roster, in spite of the fact that in the interior of each side of the ball, they haven't really done a great job there per se. But I do think that, I mean, I stand by what I said, and I think that the Texans still have a really good interior defensive line in spite of how it looked against this run game. But one thing I think that's helped them in the past is that with Christian Harris being in there early on before he got hurt, that helped kind of supplement, because back before when Rankins was here, it didn't feel like this was the case, and they didn't necessarily have like a run stopping nose tackle. It's not really been a thing since D'Amico's been coach, but they were able to stop the run due to support at the next level, and it never really felt like they got tore up the way that they have been. And then I think last season, Jalen Petrie shifting into that star safety role really mitigated any issues that were brought on by not being able to stop the run at the first level. And to speak to the interior offensive line, I guess to kind of shift gears here, Laken Tomlinson not doing great, and this is a talking point we've had before. I think I've said it 100 times. I think everything we talk about at this point has been said 100 times. But that interior offensive line is comprised of two people that were the only guys rated worse than Kenyon Green at pass blocking. But it's become evident that at least Laken Tomlinson just doesn't really look good at any kind of blocking. Consistently, at least. I mean, I think he had a couple of really good reps, and that's to say, and we can elaborate on it more in a minute, but like, CJ did have clean pockets at points. It wasn't consistent, but there was points where he had them throughout the game. It's not like the offensive line was entirely inept the entire game. I think they were far from the only issue with the offense. There's more to be unpacked there, but Do you think there's any merit to the idea of, hear me out here, maybe putting your second round pick, Juice Scruggs, on this offensive line? I think Ed Ingram's doing a solid job. I think that while he wasn't great, he was better than Laken Tomlinson. I think that there is merit to the idea in my head of putting Juice Scruggs in at left guard and seeing if that, because I think I had Dylan Delgado had alluded to this, but this offensive line was always probably going to be somewhat of an experiment in terms of what was going to work best, what was going to be the lineup, and they landed on one lineup, couldn't put it out in the first game due to injury. We've seen that lineup now, and now we can kind of make an assessment of what should be done moving forward. What are your thoughts on the possibility of maybe bringing in Juice Scruggs to play on the left side? Do you think that may be a good idea? I don't know.
What are your thoughts on Cole Popovich two weeks in? I mean, that's the answer. This is the coach. That's the guy who's saying Laken Tomlinson gives them a better chance to block CJ Stroud than Juice Scruggs. For everyone that wants Juice Scruggs, what are your thoughts on Cole Popovich? This was the dude. This was the whisperer, and I'm only half joking, right?
Whisperer.
Yeah. He was supposed to have tutored under the Jedi Master, who was supposed to bring balance to the Force, and if you have an issue with who's out there, it's Cole Popovich's job to put them there. Now, guess what? That's a rookie too. I don't know what to do with him. He was there before as an assistant, and everybody's like, "Oh no, this guy's gonna get it." This guy's got the stuff to be a really good O-line coach, and maybe he does. But he's the reason we're getting Laken Tomlinson right now instead of Juice Scruggs. And if you don't like Laken Tomlinson, then you don't like Cole Popovich, because that's the guy. That's the, you know what I mean? Like, who was the guy that got fired before? I'm struggling with names. I'm sorry.
Chris Strausser was the offensive line coach.
Chris Strausser was adamant. I'm gonna make Kenyon Green work, and would run Kenyon Green out there, and everybody was like, fire this dude, because he would not get off Kenyon Green. And now we're in a similar boat. And I kind of feel like if I want Laken Tomlinson out of there, I got to go to the top.
Here's my thought on it, right? Late last season, and I think that it stems from an ideology that the Texans seem to be getting away from, as long as it benefits them, because they did it with Ursery over Robinson. I think that the Texans have operated in this way of injuries don't make you lose your position, and to a detriment. So I think last season we can look at Shaq Mason going down injured. Juice Scruggs comes in and gives the Texans a boost at that guard position. And then right before the game against the Chiefs, it is determined that Shaq Mason is healthy, he's a go, and the Texans decide to roll with him in spite of having evidence that they should not. So I'm not going to make a judgment call on it right now, but in the back of my head, I'm looking at Laken Tomlinson, and if it's consistently bad, I think that if I'm Cole Popovich, I would have to make an assessment of if this is what's best for my offensive line. Now, one thing that could affect it is that maybe they like Titus Howard better at right guard, or better at guard in general, than they like Juice Scruggs. So they would rather get Blake Fisher to get right so they can shift Titus in. I like Titus and Ursery at tackle. I don't think that's been bad. I think Ursery had a pretty good game this past week, and I think that Howard is not like bad. I think all the issues stem from the interior. And so I think Andrews is practicing. He's in a limited status. He was a little better than Patterson, I think. And I think that either way, Popovich is going to want to go back to Andrews, because I think he just likes him better. And Ingram was serviceable. It's just a matter of, to me, getting the left guard spot right. And it could be this, right? At work, whenever things are tight and we're really pushing production and we're getting going, I have people in my grill micromanaging the tiniest things. And they're like, hey, what can we do to get, more machines out and operating, or whatever they need from me in that moment. And I'm just like, dude, we're not like in need of that. Like, everything is fine. And that's not to say, I think that D'Amico Ryans oversimplified it and went in a direction of everything is fine. I thought that CJ looked good and our offensive line was good. I think that's not something you can say at this point, and it shows kind of an aloofness to the offensive operation that I thought D'Amico was trying not to show, because I thought he was trying to be more involved in that side of the ball as the head coach. But I mean, and to be fair, personally, I would rather D'Amico specialize in the defense, and I would rather him be cognizant of the offense. I think you have to strengthen your strengths, and you have to be aware of what is going on the other side and assessing it, right? I think that a defensive minded head coach is a different perspective. You know how sometimes you're like looking at a problem and you're like, there's no way that this can work, because you only have one solution in mind and you know that solution won't work. And then someone who's never done your job before asks what they think is a really dumb question, and you go, oh, wait, it can work. I just have to do it this way. I just have to change my perspective. I think that that's how D'Amico should function for the offense. He should occasionally peek over the offense and be like, hey, Nick, I noticed that this is happening. Have you thought of this? And Kaylee can go, no, as a matter of fact, I haven't. And also, Nick Kaylee, much like Bobby Slowick, not a comparison I like making, but it is true, I think coached defensively at first and shifted to the offensive side of the ball. So there's a lot of that perspective going on. There's a lot of that perspective already. But D'Amico, I don't need him to be calling offensive plays. I don't need him to be micromanaging the offensive side of the ball. But I think there's something he can provide looking at that side of the ball. So, but it's interesting to see that what he's observed of the offense is, the O-line and CJ Stroud are doing okay, because that's definitely not what is being seen by people. Now, to say, we're still adjusting to the scheme, there's some kinks in it, but I think that they're going to get it, is different than they are doing good right now, because they are doing good right now, I would say, is objectively incorrect. I would say that is very far from the truth. I think it could be the truth in the next few weeks, but I don't think it's the truth right now. So I'm interested in that. I don't know. It felt like you heard a lot of what I had to say and had something to say about it. So I'm just going to let you respond.
I don't disagree with you. I totally think that the one thing I do disagree with, I guess, is the D'Amico thing. I totally think that D'Amico is trying to be the head coach and not a coordinator coach. And I think that's the right thing for him to do. The really good, I think, defensive-minded head coaches, don't necessarily have to coach defense. They coach their coaches up. And, then he's allowed to worry about all the management stuff, timeouts in game, time management, that sort of thing, challenge system, that sort of thing. I mean, what I've seen in 2 weeks, I really don't feel like D'Amico's calling plays. I really don't feel like, you see him when they pan over to him, seems like he's communicating to other guys, but I don't think he's actively, calling plays. He's maybe coaching up guys one here, there, whatever. So
in the graphic he was listed, and now, not to say that ESPN is all knowing, but it may have been reported to ESPN. He was listed as the play caller on the defensive side of the ball. It was a distinguishment, or I can't think of the word right now. It was something that was shown and determined on the screen per ESPN. That's not to say that that's happening, but
I don't know. One time they panned over to Matt Burke, I felt like he was calling plays.
I think that Matt Burke, like I said, we're both fans. We're outside the organization. We don't actually know what's best. We can only think logically with our brains on what we might think would be best if we were possibly in that room. But so far, early seasons with D'Amico, he's been listed as the play caller. He has been clearly identified in that way, and the defense has run well. In year 3, hand over that responsibility to Matt Burke to try and be more into head coaching would be, I think, malpractice. I think that Matt Burke's only purpose, much like most, coordinators that are hired under a coach that already does what their job is to learn from D'Amico and to, once again, now from the same side of the ball, he's a defensive coordinator. It's not like he's an offensive mind, but from the same side of the ball, look at the field and be like, hey, D'Amico, I noticed that when Harris blitzes the A gap, that he gets picked up pretty easy. Maybe we should shift that, or make observations that D'Amico can't see everything. So you're another set of eyes on the field and you're hearing his play calls, giving him feedback. And I think we can look at last year based on the reporting one of the fatal flaws on the Texans offensive side of the ball, per what has been reported, was that Bobby Slowick was a tyrant and a control freak that didn't listen to people that were under him when he was advised on what was happening with his side of the ball. He just said, listen, Cole, I'm the offensive coordinator. I get you have some experience, but like this is what I think is best. So this is what we're going to do. And if D'Amico functions that way over the last 2 years, maybe he should keep functioning that way. The defense did really well, but I can't imagine he does. He doesn't seem like the kind of person. But then again, Bobby Slowick didn't seem like the kind of person. So just to repeat, I mean, we're not in that room. We don't know, but in our experience, I would assume our experience was very similar in our days, fighting for freedom and stuff. Generally speaking, the best leaders were the ones who took feedback from below, gave credit where credit was due, and put together a team that was ready to function and accomplish the mission, as a unit, pulling together all resources at hand to make sure that it happened the best way it could. And so I can't help but let my mind wander to that being the way that things function. I've obviously been working a civilian job for the past 8 months, and I can say that is not always the way things function. In fact, it's very different from being in the military, but I apply that when I'm thinking about what's going on in this Texans organization. I have to think of chain of command, whose role is what, who would be best to do what. And that's how I see it. It may not even be, I don't know if it even falls in line with how the military would look at it, but I mean, that's just kind of where I'm coming from. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I can't disagree with you more. Like,
ooh,
everything military screams chain of command, just like you said. So if you're telling me D'Amico's not delegating down, then they're not the same, because that's exactly how that happens.
That's true. I think I contradicted myself there.
Big time.
I think I contradicted myself there a little bit.
Delegating all those responsibilities down to Matt Burke and going, I put somebody in charge of that. And
you know where that comes from for me is that in my time on the submarine, we would have maintenance we had to do in a day. And when it was done, we could go home. Like if there was nothing else to do. So as I rose up in my division, I was knowledgeable on how it needed to be done. And if someone came in, I'm supposed to teach the new guy how to do it. But also if I do it, it will finish quicker and I can go home. So it will be done right, quicker, better, and we will go home. So watch me do it, learn it, so that when it's your turn to do it, you can do it. But right now it's me. So that's kind of, I guess, where it comes from for me, this mentality that D'Amico has been doing it. It's been going well. To change it up right now, especially with the uncertainty on the offensive side of the ball, seems like malpractice to me.
Maybe. I really don't have an issue with what the defense is doing. So
I do. 1 minute. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how the defense did in this game, because as much as it was not the problem, and for those who don't know, quick shameless plug on Bleacher Report today, I put out a video on this. So if you are on Bleacher Report and you observe the Texans daily videos, thank you for doing that, because I'm not sure if I know anyone who actually does, but it'd be really nice if you did, for my sake, for my continued ability to do that. But I ended that video on a note. I looked at all the things that went wrong defensively, and I ended it with this. And I want to say this first because I think it's important to understand. This defense shouldn't need to be flawless in order to win games. They should be given the ability to make errors, because it's going to happen, and they should be able to, it should be tag team. It should be, okay, I got you, you got me. That was something that they talked about CJ Stroud's rookie season, where CJ would go, hey, thanks for getting me, I got you. He'd throw a pick, and the defense would say, we got you. And he'd be like, okay, I got you. I'm going to take care of it, and I'm going to go get the score. And it doesn't really feel that way right now. It feels like it's all one-sided, like the defense has to be perfect, like an older sibling who has a complete, jerk of a younger sibling that can't get right, and they just have to be perfect to make up for that. Like that's how it kind of feels, is that the defense has to be that way. But there were flaws in the way the defense functioned. I'll list them really quickly, and then I'll let you talk about it. Discipline. They were running around like kids I coached at the junior peewee level, launching themselves like pinballs to try and get tackles, hoping their momentum would take guys down. It felt like the team couldn't take a proper line, couldn't read where the ball was going, and got lost. It showed on 4th and 10, there's no reason Toa shouldn't make that tackle. He's coming in late. He has all the time in the world to set and assess where Baker Mayfield's going, and he just comes in recklessly, undisciplined, and aggressive. and just misses him entirely. The defensive unit committed several undisciplined penalties that were mostly a result of hand placement, if I had to bring it down to one thing. And so that's a big part of it. Looking at the way that this defense functioned, stopping the run was a huge issue for this defense. We've already kind of alluded to that. And then, I mean, yeah, that was pretty much the big things that went down with this defense. I feel like overall, rough start at the beginning, picked it up and held nicely. I mean, I felt like they played a really good game overall, but at the end of the day, like I said, the big thing is that they had to be perfect to win this game because the offense was not going to help them. And so I don't think that's their fault, but there was issues. So, I mean, what were your thoughts?
You pretty much said what I needed to say. They're not going to be perfect. No defense will be. I mean, there has been some in the past that were just otherworldly and just really technically sound. And I think the Texans have room for that. I think they can get better. I think they can clean up some of the penalty stuff. I think that's Christian Harris's penalty where he gets his hand underneath the guy's face mask. Obviously, you can't do that. Now, is he going to do that every game? Probably not. I was glad that he was in the backfield. The Toa thing, for everybody that wants to take shots at Henry Toa, I'd like to see anybody else try to tackle Baker Mayfield when he's scrambling, knowing that if he gets to the outside, I'm in trouble. I think Toa's first priority was to contain because they had lost outside contain, and that's why he forced Baker through the middle of the field, which is what you're supposed to do. Now, should he have made the tackle? Yes. Is that easier said than done? Yes. Now, should there have been anybody else on the field behind him because everybody was out in coverage? Yes. I do believe that some of the things that went wrong with the Texans defense, like the run game, was part scheme. I think what the Texans were trying to do was trying to limit Baker through the air and was like, okay, we're going to force you to slowly go down the field and make third downs and convert. And that's why I think it went the way it did. The linebackers didn't tackle very well. There was a lot of missed tackles in this game. If there is an area where I think the Texans defense maybe is a little soft, it's in the linebacker room. Aziz is a monster. I love Toa. Sometimes he can miss some tackles. I think Christian Harris, we don't know what Christian Harris is. Some people say he's toast. He's cooked. There's no more Christian Harris. And that's LMJ 2.0. I think you said that the other day. And we're done here. And maybe that means EJ Speed needs to be that guy. We'll see. They have depth that they didn't have before for, I think, that reason. But when you hold teams to an average of 17 points, you're a really good defense. You're really good. In a league that's designed to score points, in a league where everybody's giving you 21, like basically off rip, except the Texans, 17 points is really good. Like really, really good.
It is really good. I mean, this team, like I think someone pointed it out, they basically flip-flopped because last season it felt like they gave up more points than their EPA would have, given you reason to believe. They were really holding teams away from moving the ball, but they were still getting scored on. Whereas this season, it feels like teams are sustaining drives against the Texans, but they just can't finish. They can't get into the end zone and can't get it done. And you could probably at least put part of that on the rise of going forward on fourth down, not really settling and punching the ball. But it's flip-flopped, and it makes it more frustrating, and it brings more eyes to the defense when people look at what's wrong with this team, because now we're looking at the fact that they put up 170 yards rushing, and Baker Mayfield, 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, and we're looking, and some people just watch the stat sheet and they go, wow, that was not a very good game defensively. But if you watch that game, you'd know the defense, they held them up. They just had some bad plays that affected the momentum of the game, affected the mentality. So very different. Speaking of 4th and 1, and this is probably the last thing I want to talk about before we kind of bring this thing to a close. What did you think of the sequence from the offense? So they set up 1st and goal on like the 2, a 1-yard run with Nick Chubb, and then 3 plays, they run a 4 and out. A couple of things to answer. Do you think they should have gone for it on 4th down? And just what did you think of the offensive sequence in general?
So I've spoken to it a couple different times. I think they were going to be damned if they did and damned if they didn't. Texans fans would have been eating the Texans up if they'd have kicked another field goal and not scored a touchdown, and they'd have lost by 1 point. And at the time, obviously hindsight is 2020, but at the time that would have made it a 1-score game going the other way. So who's to say they don't come down, kick a field goal, win, and go 4th and 1? You got to go for that. You got to get 1 yard. You got to score a touchdown. Now, do I necessarily agree with the play calling? No, not really. I think they tried to put the ball in the best player's hands. And if I told you they're going to try to get the ball, they're going to try to force feed Nico Collins, just sight unseen, hey, we need points. We're going to Nico Collins. You're like, absolutely, let's do it. They did that. Now, did they execute it properly? Absolutely not. But that was the intent. If CJ Stroud hits Nico Collins as he should in the back right corner on 2nd and 1, 2nd and 1, we're not talking about this. And,
I agree with you.
And I think for all the noise about 4th and 1, 2nd and 1 to me is more critical, because if CJ is the dude we think he is, and I still do, that's the throw he has to make. And all the great ones do. Mahomes makes that throw. Brady makes that throw. Everybody makes that throw. And they get those points. I think Nico ran a phenomenal route. He was wide open. You just got to hit him. If he hits him, it's a touchdown. He got separation. Got to hit him.
He ran a good route. He got separation. I think the problem is that with the way he ran the route, he made it a lot harder. It was a lot harder throw than it needed to be. But also, I don't think he comes open if he doesn't run the route that way. So there's a lot to dissect there. And looking online and watching the play over again. So they're on the one. That double move that he makes on a goalie fade just complicates the timing of the route. The goalie fade is like, get out there, and CJ's coming back into the pocket with a look throw. Like, it's like a timing thing. And so CJ was probably looking for a very specific window with that throw, and Nico's double move made him open. I mean, he ran himself open, but at the risk of throwing off the timing and not being in the place he needed to be in order to get the ball. Now,
So
if he is,
hold on. So you think Nico did that on his own? That wasn't designed?
I can't speak to if it was designed or not, but judging by the way the ball was thrown, it was placed very precisely, and at face value, it looks like he misses him, right? It looks like he misses him, but that's a route that has to have that precise timing. If you've ever seen a goalie fade run, it is one step, lob, like just put one up there and it's a jump ball. But like, there's a place that ball has to be, and you know where that ball has to be, and anything that affects the timing of that could get in the way of it. So it's not to say that that's 100% certainly what happened, but I would 100% believe that Nico felt the coverage on him, said, here, I'll do a little jab step and get out of the way, and got by him, and then couldn't get there in time because of the time it took to make that move. I don't know if anyone even asked them about that. I reckon if I was in that room, I might have asked him about it, but I'd believe that it was your way. I believe that CJ missed that throw. CJ hasn't really given me any reason to believe that that's unbelievable, but I'm just looking at that situation and understand the timing of it. I have trouble believing that was the meant route and that CJ threw it where he did. Because if he knew that Nico was going to make that move, then I reckon he probably would have thrown it in a different location. It would have been more precise instead of like it, because the ball was just it wasn't like in there targeted. It was like in that back corner of the end zone, generally in the area. And it was thrown earlier than it should have been by we're talking minute amounts of time. And so it's easy to believe there was some error in the timing, but I do agree with you that play needs to hit. If you're going to be bold and you're not going to just run Chubb 3 times on the goal line again after he gets that 1 yard, he got you 1 yard. It was 1st and goal from the 2. He got you a yard. Most offensive coordinators probably just run him again, like just run him again. And then on 4th down, you can play the patty cake. Am I going to throw it? Am I going to run it? What is it? But like for 2nd and 3rd down, I'm putting a fullback in there like Jakob and I'm just running it QB sneak, halfback dive, something. I'm just running it right at them, hardcore, right down their throat. But you're not going to convince me that it was not the right call to go for it on fourth down. There's nothing that anyone's going to say to me. Too many times I've watched the Texans chicken out and take the points, and that's not the kind of team that I want to root for. I have a lot of respect for the Lions in that game where they lost to the 49ers. The amount of times they went for it and they stayed true to themselves to a detriment. I mean, it cost them the game, but that's the mentality I want. It's like 1 yard is not too much for us to get. We didn't get it the first 3 times, but the fourth time it's going to happen. Like that's just, so it would be impossible for you to tell me that's unless of course, right? Like 4th and 1 and you're kicking it, tie the game and there's no time. Like it's either you take the lead or you don't. Maybe take the field goal, send it to overtime. Even then, I'm not 100% set on that. But anyways, the progression offensively for me, my biggest problem is that they didn't run it. And to speak situationally, right? I think that missing that field goal is what affected the way that the rest of the game played out. So the Texans missed that field goal and then stopped the Buccaneers. The punt is blocked. They kick the field goal. And then after they kick that field goal, because they stalled, that field goal made sense. 4th and 5 or 4th and 10 from that distance, you take the field goal every time. Now you're in a position where you're willing to settle. It changes the whole vibe of the offense. But also because of the timing of it, the Texans are now put in a position, and I've seen this theorized. I think Big Sarge is the one who's been really putting out this talking point. But I think that the Bucs saw the time on the clock after that block, or after the 53-yard punt return, and they stuffed Nick Chubb once, but on that second run, if you look at the way that defense formed up, it doesn't look like they were trying to stop the Texans from running the ball in. A 25-yard run like that can be well designed. I don't think the Texans gave us much reason to believe they could design that run. There was some ways that the second level approached Nick Chubb, some bad lines that looked a lot more like other players that weren't on the field at the time than they did the Buccaneers defense throughout the game. That lead me to believe that they because the Texans would have sat on that ball. They would have sat on that ball and kicked the field goal 9 times out of 10. That's probably what they were trying to do, and Nick Chubb ran up the middle and got that touchdown. But if they kick that field goal on 4th and 1, they're now in that position anyways, but there's just more time on the clock. So then they settle and they kick the field goal and go for 2. And then the only thing it changes is that the Buccaneers drive down the field and they're only going for field goal range. And then they kick the field goal and win by 2. So I don't know if there's much that changes between those two situations, but I certainly it's one of the few situations where this is the case, because more times than not, I'd prefer the opposing team to be going for a field goal because they'll play it too conservatively and you can crush them. As much as it makes sense to want them to need a touchdown because it's harder to get, there's a lot of calculus to it. But I liked being in that position of them needing a touchdown with 2 minutes left because it made them take some shots that they weren't taking. They were playing so aggressively. They played themselves into a 4th and 10, which should have been stopped. And it wasn't. So yeah. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about that. Tom, do you have anything else to say before we bring this thing to a close?
So Big Sarge may have said that, but the guys in Tampa, like the media in Tampa, asked their guys about that, and they kind of like, no, they did really good. And then then the guy was like, is that the story we're going with? And then everybody laughed together. So I believe that Tampa's trying to put that out there that more or less we let them score so we get the ball back and win. Now, I don't see that because the Texans defense is really good. And to sit there and say, oh yeah, we're just going to go score a touchdown on them. We didn't do it the entire second half. Like, yeah, okay, sure. So if that's the narrative people want to put out there to lessen what the Texans are doing, because I don't see any other reason to do it other than to marginalize the touchdown.
That's all it's about.
Yeah, we let them score. They couldn't have scored on us. We let them score. No, they did. You couldn't stop them, and you knew you couldn't stop them, and that's what it amounted to. So I think that everybody trying to say, well, Chubb can't run the ball are the same people that saying he should have ran it 3 times for the 1 yard. So it's a contradiction there too, right?
Yeah.
I know going forward, this Jacksonville game feels like a get right spot. And I hope we're talking about, a sexy win per James Roy. And all they did was go out there and put their foot on the Jags' neck and never let them up.
Yep. And you'll hear us talk about that on Friday. So make sure you tune in to that edition of the Bullpen. All I have to say is let's get right in Jacksonville. Week 3. Throwback to 2023. 0-2 going into Jacksonville. It's a good place to be if all goes well. So thanks for hanging with us. We have been the Bullpen. I am James Roy. You can find me at James Roy NFL wherever you do social media. Tom is at Third Coast Tom on Twitter and TC Tom 1 on Instagram. And we collectively are the Bullpen, the #1 veteran-run Texans podcast in the entire world ever of all time. So until someone tells us otherwise, that's what it is. Thanks for watching. As always, stay classy, Houston, and vamos Texans.